after a perfect 8 hours of sleep, right?
Right.
Your muscles are fully rested, your body feels completely refreshed, but your brain is so, like, physically exhausted that just taking a single step feels like solving a calculus equation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
You aren't physically tired, you're cognitively paralyzed. So today we're doing a deep dive into the invisible weight of ataxia and how a completely saturated brain just, fundamentally alters how a person moves through the world.
It's a really profound disconnect between body and mind. And we rarely discuss it. I mean, usually when we look at medical conditions, it's just clinical observations from the outside.
Like a list of symptoms in a textbook.
Exactly, just a textbook. But today we're exploring this condition from the inside out.
And that inside perspective is what makes this deep dive so incredibly special. We're looking at the 5th episode of this phenomenal educational series called The Importance of.
Right.
And this specific one is called Mental Rest: Why Your Brain Needs to Disconnect. It was produced by Paco Oliva for the channel Ataxia Comunidad.
Yes, and it is such a brilliant piece of work.
It totally is. And I want to just take a second to extend a massive warm welcome to everyone from the Ataxia Comunidad who's listening to us right now. The content your community produces is just unprecedented.
It really is, because Paco actually lives this disease. He's affected by ataxia himself.
Yeah, so we aren't getting, like, dry medical theory here. We're getting real testimonies, lived experiences, the actual texture of day-to-day reality in the first person.
Which completely shifts the paradigm. I mean, when someone who actually navigates the condition explains it, you start to see this hidden cognitive toll that doctors might completely miss during a quick checkup.
Spot on. And since our regular listeners from Ataxia Comunidad already know the foundational basics of what ataxia is, we're just going to skip the introductory medical definitions today.
Yeah, we don't need to spend time explaining the cerebellum or genetics. We can just dive straight into the deep end.
Exactly. We're going to start by looking at the staggering energy cost of losing your physical autopilot.
Oh, that part is fascinating.
It is. And from there, we'll see how that energy drain turns everyday sensory environments into absolute traps for your mental battery.
Right, the mental battery.
And then we really need to confront an uncomfortable truth about how we try to rest. Specifically, why staring at a screen is basically lying to your brain.
A lot of people are going to be surprised by that one.
Oh, for sure. And finally, we'll uncover the critical difference between actual disease progression and a brain that is simply overloaded.
And that final distinction between progression and cognitive overload, it's going to be a massive relief for a lot of people. It totally reframes some of the most terrifying moments of living with this condition.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's get right into why the brain reaches that point of utter exhaustion long before physical fatigue even shows up.
Let's do it.
So Paco shares a quote in this episode that it stopped me in my tracks. He says, some people walk. I have to drive my body.
That is such a powerful way to put it.
Right. Let's unpack the actual neurology of that statement. Why does the brain have to, drive?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at how a neurotypical brain functions. Think of a healthy brain, like a massive, well-oiled corporation.
Okay, a corporation.
Yeah. So you have CEO, which is the prefrontal cortex. The CEO handles complex thinking, decision-making, conscious focus.
Makes sense.
And then you have a dedicated shipping department down in the warehouse. That represents the basal ganglia and the cerebellum.
Got it.
When you learn to walk as a toddler, the CEO figures out the mechanics, writes the manual, and hands it down to the shipping department. From that point on, walking is an automated, unconscious process. The CEO doesn't even think about it anymore.
So a neurotypical person can walk down the street while, drinking a coffee, listening to a deep dive, planning their grocery list.
Exactly. Because the CEO of their brain is totally free to do other things. The shipping department is just handling the walking on autopilot.
Like an automatic transmission in a car.
Right. But ataxia essentially shuts down that shipping department.
Oh.
The automated routing system breaks. The background program just no longer executes properly. But the body obviously still needs to move, right? So the brain has no choice but to pull that task back up to the CEO. The prefrontal cortex now has to consciously manage every single mechanical movement.
Wait, so if we follow that corporate analogy, the CEO suddenly has to leave the corner office, walk all the way down to the warehouse,
Manually pack the box.
yield the truck, and drive it through traffic, all while still trying to run the entire company.
Yes. Every single gear shift, every check of the balance, every adjustment for a weird floor tile requires complete undivided attention.
So you're literally manually calculating every step, like lift foot, shift weight, check balance, plant heel.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we really need to emphasize the biological cost of that shift.
The energy drain.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the brain already consumes about 20% of the body's entire energy supply just functioning at a baseline resting state.
Just sitting there doing nothing.
Just sitting there. So when you force the conscious thinking part of the brain, the CEO, to constantly micromanage mechanical movements, the caloric and electrical energy burn is astronomical.
You're redlining the engine just to stay upright.
You really are.
Which gives so much weight to another incredible insight from Paco. He says, I'm not tired of walking. I'm tired of thinking, compensating, and being alert all the time.
That's the core of it right there.
The physical muscles aren't failing. The cognitive fuel tank is just running completely dry.
You're effectively running high-intensity software 24 hours a day without ever, plugging into a charger. And what makes this so punishing is that this conscious compensation never turns off.
As long as you're awake, it's running.
Right. As long as you're awake and moving or interacting with the world, the CEO is down in that warehouse packing boxes.
Man, that sets up a terrifying scenario when you think about just like stepping out your front door.
Oh, absolutely.
If your brain is already working at 99% capacity just to keep your body upright, what happens when a crisis hits? Or even just unpredictable external stimuli?
That is exactly where Paco introduces this brilliant concept of the mental battery.
The mental battery. Yeah, let's talk about how certain environments just completely drain it.
It's such a good way to conceptualize this because everyday environments that neurotypical people consider totally benign suddenly become active threats to that energy reserve.
Right, because the brain is already overwhelmed and then you force it to process massive amounts of new data.
Exactly.
Paco specifically calls out places like supermarkets, hospitals, shopping malls, family gatherings, traffic. Let's look at the supermarket example.
Okay, the supermarket.
Because Paco says, the grocery shopping didn't exhaust me. Processing everything around me exhausted me. So, break down what's actually happening in the brain in aisle 4.
Well, from a neurological perspective, a supermarket is just an explosion of hostile data.
Hostile data.
Yeah. Think about it. You have the constant low-level hum and flicker of fluorescent lights. You have incredibly bright, high-contrast packaging demanding your visual attention from every angle.
Right, all the colors and text.
And then you have background music layered over random announcements on the loudspeaker.
It's sensory overload.
Complete overload.
Yeah.
And perhaps most taxing of all, you have unpredictable moving obstacles.
Oh, other people.
Other shoppers pushing carts, kids suddenly darting out from an aisle.
So if your prefrontal cortex is already entirely consumed with the conscious math of simply putting one foot in front of the other.
And then it suddenly has to calculate the trajectory of a rogue shopping cart while filtering out the glare of the lights.
The system just crashes.
It crashes. Way too much data for a compromised filter to handle.
Which brings up a really crucial distinction. The massive difference between physical exhaustion and cognitive fatigue.
They feel entirely different, yet society treats them as the exact same thing.
Right. You can wake up with your muscles feeling perfectly fine. You're physically rested.
But if your cognitive load the day before was too high, like if you spent an hour in that overwhelming supermarket, your mental battery will still be in the red.
Your command center is drained.
Exactly. And Paco points out this really insidious cycle here. Mental exhaustion feeds directly into anxiety, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. It creates this devastating feedback loop. Your brain inherently knows it doesn't have the processing power left to handle any new threats.
Right. It knows the battery is low.
So as a defense mechanism, it goes into hypervigilance. It pumps out stress hormones just to keep you alert.
And then that anxiety ruins your ability to fall asleep or stay asleep.
Yes. So you wake up the next day even more cognitively fatigued, even if you were technically in bed for 8 hours.
That's brutal.
I want to pause here and just throw this back to you, the listener. Think about your own experiences this past week. Have you ever felt utterly wiped out without having made any real physical effort?
It's such a common experience.
Do you find that a crowded mall or a noisy family dinner leaves you far more drained than if you had just spent the day doing physical labor? Paco specifically encourages the Ataxia Comunidad to share these exact experiences.
Yeah, drop a comment on the videos.
Exactly. Drop a comment. Share this deep dive with family members or friends who might not understand why a simple trip to the store leaves you needing a dark room.
It's so helpful for family to hear this.
It really is. You can even save the video to a playlist so you can easily show it to someone later. The community is always open to proposals, questions, and shared stories. You do not have to carry this invisible cognitive load in isolation.
Validating those experiences through the community is often the very first step toward managing the fatigue.
Hmm.
I mean, once you name it as cognitive drain rather than physical weakness, you can actually start addressing it.
But addressing it brings up a whole new set of problems, right?
Oh, definitely.
Because when our mental battery is flashing red, we naturally look for ways to recharge it. But I have to push back on how we usually do this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
If I come home from a chaotic family gathering and my brain is totally fried, my go-to move is to collapse on the couch, pull out my smartphone, and just scroll through social media or watch videos for an hour.
Oh, boy.
My body isn't moving. I'm completely zoning out. Why wouldn't that count as mental rest?
I am so glad you asked that, because this is perhaps the most common misconception in the modern world. And the source material is emphatic about correcting it.
Okay, lay it on me.
Staring at a screen is absolutely not mental rest.
Wait, really?
It is a complete illusion. You are just feeding your brain a different type of intense processing.
Let me stop you there. How is it intense processing? I'm literally just watching funny 15-second clips. It feels completely mindless.
It feels mindless to your conscious awareness, sure.
Yeah.
But neurologically, your brain is running a marathon.
Seriously?
Think about what's happening on a physiological level. Your visual cortex is rapidly decoding high-definition images and flashing lights. Your auditory processing centers are parsing compressed audio.
Okay, but I'm just sitting there.
You're rapidly context switching every few seconds as you swipe from a comedy video to a news story to an advertisement. Plus, you're slamming your dopamine receptors over and over again.
Wow.
Your brain isn't resting, you're just changing the flavor of the exhaustion from physical compensation to digital processing.
That is wild. So what does actual rest look like then? If sitting quietly on the couch looking at a phone is still draining the battery, what actually recharges it?
This is where Paco's series introduces the vital concept of the default mode network.
The default mode network.
Yes, this is a highly specific, interconnected network of regions in your brain that only becomes fully active when you are not focused on the outside world.
So when you aren't performing a task.
Correct. The default mode network engages when you're staring out a window, or sitting quietly in a dimly lit room with your eyes closed, or simply letting your mind wander without any external input.
Just zoning out, but without a screen.
Right. The brain demands these empty spaces. It physically requires periods of waking non-processing.
Okay, so what is that network actually doing during those empty spaces? If I'm just sitting there staring at a blank wall, what is my brain actually accomplishing?
Yeah, it's unleashing the janitorial staff.
It's janitors.
Yeah. When you stop flooding the brain with new external stimuli, the default mode network kicks in to do critical background maintenance.
What kind of maintenance?
It consolidates memories, organizing the chaotic data you took in during the day.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it clears out the metabolic waste.
Metabolic waste, like actual physical trash.
Yes, the literal physical byproducts that build up in your brain from the sheer effort of thinking and conscious movement.
Oh, man. So it's like trying to clean up a busy restaurant kitchen while the orders are still coming in during the dinner rush.
That is a perfect analogy.
You can't actually mop the floors, wipe down the grills, and take out the trash until you lock the front doors and stop taking new orders.
Exactly.
So staring at a phone is basically keeping the doors unlocked and letting new customers in.
Spot on. The janitors physically cannot enter the workspace while the lights are on and the fryers are running.
Wow.
If you never give your brain these empty spaces, if every spare second of your day is filled with a screen, a podcast, or a conversation, that neurological maintenance never happens.
The trash just piles up in the kitchen.
It just piles up.
That makes Paco's realization so profound. He states very clearly that mental rest is not a luxury.
No, it's not.
It's neurological maintenance. It isn't a reward you give yourself for getting through a tough day. It is a strict biological requirement to keep the machinery of your brain from breaking down.
And if we connect this biological requirement to the reality of ataxia, the consequences of skipping that maintenance become incredibly severe.
This brings us to the final part of our discussion. And honestly, this is the part that I think shifts the entire paradigm.
It's a huge revelation.
What actually happens if you just try to push through?
Yeah.
If you ignore the empty spaces, keep the restaurant open 24/7, and run the mental battery down to absolute zero? The videos reveal that a lack of mental rest actively, visibly worsens the physical symptoms of ataxia.
Yes, and the mechanism behind this is entirely logical when you understand the energy tax we discussed earlier.
Right, because the CEO is out of fuel.
Exactly. If your prefrontal cortex, the CEO, manually driving your body, is out of fuel and drowning in metabolic waste because the default mode network hasn't been allowed to clean up, it can no longer calculate those complex movement equations quickly enough.
So the coordination drops significantly.
Right.
Your balance falters more than usual. You might find yourself stumbling over completely flat surfaces.
And speech is affected too.
Oh, yeah. Even your speech might become noticeably more difficult or slurred because forming words requires immense conscious motor control.
The physical performance degrades entirely because the command center is saturated.
And here's the massive revelation. When someone with ataxia experiences 2 or 3 days of severe clumsiness, or their speech takes a noticeable dip, the immediate, completely natural reaction is absolute terror.
Of course it is.
The internal monologue is, the disease is progressing, my baseline is permanently worsening, the decline is accelerating, and this is my new normal.
Which is an entirely understandable fear. I mean, when you live with a progressive condition, every bad day feels like a harbinger of an inevitable future. You are constantly scanning your body for signs of decline.
But the insight shared here is a total game changer. Paco reveals that very often, this perceived worsening is absolutely not the disease progressing.
No, it's not.
It is simply a saturated brain. You aren't permanently losing ground. Your mental RAM is just full.
The trash is piled up in the kitchen because you haven't taken the time to engage that default mode network.
Think about how incredibly empowering that distinction is. It shifts the entire narrative from a place of helplessness to a place of actionable management.
It really does. If your symptoms flare up and it's disease progression, you feel powerless. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
But if you recognize that it's cognitive saturation, you actually have a tool to fix it.
It puts the control right back in your hands. It means you can look at your week and say, wait a minute. I went to a noisy family dinner on Saturday. I spent all day Sunday running errands while listening to the radio, and I haven't taken a single empty space in 3 days. No wonder I'm stumbling on Monday.
You can trace the physical symptom directly back to the cognitive drain.
It completely reframes the experience of living in that body.
It does. To quote the underlying wisdom of this perspective, sometimes you don't need more strength, more willpower, or more effort. Sometimes what your brain needs is something much simpler. Permission to disconnect.
Permission to disconnect. Man, we are so heavily conditioned by society to believe that pushing harder is always the answer.
Always. We view resting as giving up.
Or as being lazy. But in the context of ataxia, resting is literally doing the work. Giving yourself permission to just exist in an empty space, in a quiet room, without a phone, without a task, without a single ounce of guilt. That is active neurological repair.
It is the most productive, beneficial thing you can possibly do for your coordination and balance in that specific moment.
Let's just take a breath and recap the sheer density of insight we've just unpacked from Paco's work.
It's a lot of good stuff.
First, ataxia fundamentally breaks the body's autopilot, forcing the conscious brain to expend massive amounts of energy manually calculating every physical movement. You aren't just walking, you are driving your body.
Second, because of that incredibly high baseline of energy use, everyday environments saturated with sensory input, like a busy supermarket or a crowded street, rapidly drain the mental battery.
Right, which leads to profound cognitive fatigue long before your muscles actually get tired.
Exactly.
Third, scrolling on a smartphone or watching videos is fake rest.
Total illusion.
It forces your brain to keep processing data. True mental rest requires activating the default mode network through deliberate empty spaces, giving the brain time to clear out the metabolic noise.
And finally, a saturated brain will aggressively mimic disease progression. When your symptoms suddenly flare up, it might just be your brain begging for an empty space.
Understanding that true mental rest actually manages physical symptoms is the key to taking back control.
It is a masterful synthesis of lived experience and deep neurological reality. It takes these invisible struggles and makes them undeniably tangible.
It really does. And before we close, I just want to reiterate our warm greetings to the entire Ataxia Comunidad.
Such a wonderful community.
There is such an immense, undeniable beauty in belonging to a group where you can share these incredibly specific, nuanced experiences. It is profoundly healing to learn from one another and truly feel understood without having to constantly explain or justify your exhaustion.
Community is just as vital as any medical intervention. I mean, it validates the struggles that doctors often don't see.
Absolutely. As Paco reminds everyone, no one has to live this alone. You do not have to carry this invisible cognitive load in isolation. So please, if you are listening right now, interact with this content. Share your experiences in the comments. Like the videos. Make a playlist of the ones that resonate with you.
And share this deep dive with family members or friends.
Yes, share it with anyone who might find it useful to finally understand what is happening beneath the surface. Make sure to join the conversation and follow the project on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
The community is always growing.
Always. And they are always open to proposals, questions, and new initiatives. Your voice and your specific lived experience matters immensely in this space.
And as we wrap up our analysis of this episode, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've talked extensively today about the staggering caloric and energetic drain of conscious physical compensation. But taking a step back, it raises a broader question.
What is?
If consciously navigating something as fundamental as walking drains the brain so heavily, how many other invisible cognitive loads are we carrying in our modern, hyperstimulating world without even realizing it?
Oh, wow.
When our balance falters or our focus breaks, maybe it's time we all stop demanding more fuel from ourselves and start aggressively carving out more empty spaces.
That makes you look at that restaurant kitchen analogy completely differently. You can't just keep taking orders forever. Eventually, you have to lock the doors and let the janitors do their job.
Exactly. Give yourself permission to disconnect this week.
Take your empty spaces. To honor the incredible source material today, the lived experience of its author, and the specific ongoing mission of the Ataxia Comunidad channel, we are going to close this deep dive by proudly sharing the project's rallying cry.
Yes.
It's time for ataxia to be impossible to ignore.